Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome you all to my channel. In this video I'll be reviewing the 4th episode of Season 2 of the show Loki, titled Heart of the TVA. I'm going to tell you what I liked about the episode, I'm going to tell you what I didn't like about the episode, then I'm going to tell you why I think you should see the episode or just skip it. So let's get to it. The first thing I loved about this episode were the stakes. So the stakes at the end of Avengers Endgame was pretty straightforward. If Thanos won, he would take the Infinity Stones and basically destroy the universe, strip it down to the studs, and start from scratch. To one-up that, this particular episode, multiverses, so trillions and trillions of people were now at stake, and if they failed, ultimately all those people will die. I love that because when people make sacrifices, when people take risks, it makes sense. If they don't do this, we're talking about men, women, children, babies are all going to be wiped from existence. And the weight of everything was very much on these characters and expressed by these characters. Sylvie, Loki, they all had the same common goal. They wanted to save these people. And so with that, you saw it, and it built tension within the episode, which I loved. It was just like with the first episode of the season, I could not take my eyes off the screen. I was locked in, and so that's what I love about this particular episode. Another thing I loved about this episode was the tone. So where a lot of the MCU movies and definitely this series it was very, very jokey, very, very silly. The tone of this particular episode was serious and it was dark. There's one particular scene which I'm not going to spoil, but a gruesome mass murder is assumed to be happening. You don't see it, but you hear it. And so that's probably the closest that Disney's going to get to that kind of scene where if it was like The Boys or whatever, you would see it. With this particular one, you hear it and then you see the aftermath of it. This was way darker than most of the stuff that we see out of the MCU, and I was all for it. And even at various points, they call out some of the silliness. I'll go ahead and throw one out there. The whole pie gag, if you've seen the trailers, if you've seen the episodes, there's a whole thing with Mobius and pie. And so I'm not going to say who it does, but it gets called out as kind of like, this is stupid. What are you doing? And this is the way I was feeling. But I'm glad another character called it out as, this is dumb. Like, what in this situation, pie or talking about pie or obsessing about pie is stupid. People are going to die. So yeah, I love that. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of tension in this episode in regards to the consequences. And so again, with that tone, they toned down the jokes a lot. There were jokes in there, but it was toned down a lot. And so the third thing I loved about this episode was the ending. Now, there's not much I can say about the ending that doesn't spoil it. So all I'm going to say is that this is definitely my favorite ending of any of the episodes within this series, barring maybe the end of the last episode of Season 1 where we got basically the whole multiversal war and He Who Remains kind of revealed in that particular episode. So that still probably is my favorite ending, but I think that this ending is potentially a lot better than that ending even. And beyond that, this is actually probably one of my favorite endings of either a movie or TV series in all of the MCU. So that says a lot, especially from a series that has been kind of hit or miss with me. But this ending definitely was a hit. So what didn't I like about this particular episode? Well, there was only one thing that I would say I disliked about the episode. So Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor. He brings a lot of gravitas to his roles. But I feel like as Victor Timely, he is overacting. And so that's something that I don't really care for. There's one gag with a modern technological device that they kind of play with, which does play into the ending to an extent. But it's just like, oh my God, like why? Like this is so we're focused on this big task, this important task, and you're talking about this thing, which I understand you're for the 19th century, you wouldn't have seen this before. But it's like, oh my God, like I get it's a joke, but this joke is taking too long. It's just taken away from the other stuff that's happening. And so that's my only real gripe with the episode. Now I will say, there's one funny spot, and I feel like I don't like, okay, it has to do with, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Victor Timely, Ravonna, I keep saying it, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, Ravonna Renslayer basically, and Miss Minutes. There's one gag when he shows up and sees them, and I did laugh out loud. And it was one of those things that kind of, it took away from some of the seriousness But I'm like, this is it. This is right. This is what would happen if with somebody who had, you know, the situation with Miss Minutes and Renslayer. This is how they would react, how this particular character would react. So I like that particular joke with Victor Timely. And it was along the same lines of, okay, we have a serious moment and now we're going to be silly. I like that particular silliness. I like that joke. But for the most part, a lot of what he was doing goes back to the last episode where it's like this overacting, this over-exaggeration. And I hate to say this, I feel like if you, let's say you took a Daniel Day-Lewis, one of our greatest modern actors, or even like a Denzel Washington, and put them into this role, I think you would get a much better, more nuanced performance, of this particular character. And so that's just something I'm not, and so that's kind of my feeling every time I see this, like, this could be done better. Now, Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor. I'm not, like, you know, criticizing him as an actor. I mean, I can't act. But the point is that based on performances I've seen, I feel like I would love to see a more nuanced take on this character than what I'm seeing, which I feel is like over the top, almost like tomfoolery, slapstick type of comedy, which I just don't think fits the tone of what's being dealt with in this particular, with this particular threat. All right, so you see this episode or just skip it. So of all the Loki episodes, there are two must-sees. I'll say two must-sees. There's the last episode of season 1, where you get the whole multiversal war and all the stakes of the entire, I guess, phase 5 and 6, I guess, the last 2 phases. Yeah, whatever. The most recent phases. The multiversal war, you're trying to stop that from happening because that's where we're going. That basically all of existence is at stake. So that is laid out at the end of that season. You know, spoiler alert. That's laid out at the end of season 1. So I like that, and it's also brought back up in this particular season. The other must-see episode is this one. I can see a version of this series where this is the first episode of season 2. So we have Renslayer, you have Miss Minutes, you have the remains of He Who Remains, you know, there in this particular episode, which again could have come from the end of the first season. You have the threat that they're facing in regards to kind of, you have these new timelines, and it's putting everything at risk. Like the risk, you know, the whole loom and all that stuff at risk. So that's there. You could basically have started here. The one wild card is Victor Timely. Like, who is this guy? And they could have just did a little. Well, this is, you know, we had to find a king, and this is the one we found, 19th century, or a world that's like, it's weird how he's supposed to be from the 31st century, but he's from the 9th. I'm assuming that he was dropped there by somebody. We'll probably get that towards the end of the season. But the point is, I could see this as being the beginning of the season because I think this is crucial. This is essential. This is, to me, one of the best, one of the 2 best, if not the best, episodes of this entire series. And if this was the first episode I had seen, I'm like, I'm all in for this. Now, it's been hit or miss for me, and I definitely hope that we stay here. And I know that I think the directors and the writers of this episode write the rest of them, so, you know. But yeah, definitely this was one of the best episodes of this series. Definitely a must-see. Now, if you found that review interesting and or informative, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if there are other comic book or sci-fi properties you want me to review on this channel, please leave those suggestions in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.